Kohoutek. Who will stand alone? Who will stand alone is a request for a volunteer, not something to dread. Isolation is solace, an untucking, a shoulder bone slumping, but it is treated like a punishment I am supposed to avoid. Girls who are not acceptable will be left alone. I do not want to be left alone forever. That is the old push-pull, a mournful note ricocheting through an empty chamber, self-selecting into solitude, and still wanting someone to draw me out. Michael Stipe, when asked about the inspiration behind the lyrics of Kohoutek, replied, "I think it was the idea that relationships are or can be fleeting, of the moment, then gone." Michael is famously secretive about the meanings of his songs, but he was willing to gesture toward exposure, two behaviors deeply familiar to me. I'm trying to respond to each line. I'm trying to show you that I built myself into a cabinet with wooden doors, opened to reveal tiny pigeonhole crevices, little memories and moments rolled and tucked between the slats, trapdoors and false fronts, and I am the only one who knows where to press to make them open. She carried ribbons. She wore them out. My mother used to keep ribbons and rubber bands in the shallow top drawer of a dresser misplaced into the dining room. It was beautiful, built with old wood, and I never understood why my parents didn't use it as an actual dresser. My parents had bought the dresser at a rural auction when they lived in Lafayette, Indiana during my father's graduate school years. They bid money they didn't really have because my woodworking father could tell the construction was quality. Nearly 20 years later, I took that dresser with me to college. In my apartment, I stuffed socks and underwear in the top drawer, smushed pajamas alongside pants in the bottom, stacked shirts in the middle. That was how my mother taught me to stock a dresser. That is how I stock my daughter's dressers. Yet that dresser is in my living room now, oddly enough. My husband calls it the Lafayette chest. It holds art supplies for my daughters in the bottom, art supplies for my husband in the middle, and ephemera in the top. I bet if I look, I can find ribbons. Courage built a bridge. Jealous tore it down. We all carry the apocryphal stories of our youths into our adulthoods, those times someone discovered a crack and wrenched us apart. I was reading a friend's essay in which someone had asked her to confess the worst thing that had ever happened to her. I thought it was a terribly prying question. I was surprised by the presumption that she would share her secret with someone else. Most of my worst things will never see daylight again. They lie at the bottom of a crevice I will allow no one to repel toward. Instead, I tell the same betrayal stories we are accustomed to hearing across a restaurant table, like the one about the girls who stole my diary. I can sketch the scene quickly now after years of experience. I had recently moved to town. I didn't know who to trust. I had never been hurt by someone who called herself my friend. I can deepen the narrative, if my listener leans forward to show interest, by revealing that I had written in my diary that one of the girl's mothers was always gone, an observation which must have made the girl furious in her embarrassment. I rhetorically wave a hand over the awkward return of the diary, a transaction between my mother and the titular mother, and close with the image of me kneeling over the toilet, ripping out pages and flushing them, a dramatic finale for someone who now hoards the documented scraps of her childhood. I thought I was so courageous to tell the truth about the girl's mother, but the honesty of that bright reveal fizzled out upon arrival. What did I know? That is the foundational problem I carry with me today, distinguishing truth from disclosure. At least it's something you've left behind. The end of the 20-year anniversary cycle is coming. I've done a poor job of appropriately commemorating my first boyfriend in those seminal 7.5 months, which reverberated through my next 7.5 years, and I wonder why. I thought I'd be recreating the scenes and revisiting the locations, or at least intimately reliving them in my mind. My first boyfriend and I had engaged in a long-distance relationship. My reconstructions, even at the time, were more vivid than our actual encounters. But all those moments finally feel distant. I wonder how one of my friends keeps her yearning alive, how she can sustain her writerly longing for a man who is not her husband so many years after those old events have are erasing, the cells regenerating. I remember my Saturn return, when I was compelled to write down every encounter my first boyfriend and I ever had, collecting them in one master document, one recorded memoir. I can't fathom still clasping tightly the tense hope of our potential run-ins. I carry enough from the past. I cannot take on any more present. Like Kohoutek, you were gone. The absence of something middling at best is still absence. It is not the absent person I long for, ever. I do not wish for the presence of my first boyfriend as much as I wish to feel that old nervous exhaustion of waiting for a surprise visit that never came. I do not miss his strangely timed 3 years post-breakup email brags about baking bread and bikes, trying to show me, still, how weird he was. I miss never knowing when his name might come through the inbox and upset an entire day into a puddle of memory for the girl I had been. It was always the uncertainty and the waiting for an outstretched hand that I longed for. That absence is the hardest part to get over. The actual contact was disappointing, always. But the anticipation was brilliant.